Right, so just get straight on with it. What I'm going to do is go through this. I've got like a little presentation to go through. Feel free to ask any questions and I'll try and answer them as we go. And then at the end of this, what I'll do, because I don't know how long it'll take to go through this, but what I'll do, hi Sarah, what I'll do is, if you've got any specific examples of something you want to do yourself or a client, then we'll try and do some examples for the last bit of this to make it specific for you. So as always, I'm going to try and go through some general principles first of all, because to me that's always the most important thing. Once you get the principles of it, you can adapt it to any situation you want to. Good. Suzanne's saying, why did my message say it was private? It still does. Right, in the chat message box on the side of your screen, it'll say probably send to everyone, or send to presenter, or send to something like that, whatever you got it set to. So like on my screen now, I've just shown it down the bottom of the screen. If I click send to everyone, whatever I type there will come to everyone. Okay. But because I'm showing my screen, just change it. Okay, that's great. So you can have a chat amongst yourselves as well, and I'll try to not be distracted by it. Lovely, let's get on. Right. Okay, so self-hypnosis for you and your clients. Let me just give you some real basic principles first of all. Some of this you already know, some of it might be new to you, but let's just make sure we've got the basics down first of all. Oops. So just as an absolute complete reminder that in a way all hypnosis is really self-hypnosis. So even when you think you're doing hypnosis on a client, really you're saying some words or suggesting some ideas, and the actual hypnosis takes place within them, right? We don't have any power really. We can pretend we do sometimes, but really everything just takes place within the client. So all hypnosis is really self-hypnosis. And in a way, every thought is a form of self-hypnosis as well. So I can move my screen so I can keep around things. So every thought is a form of self-hypnosis. Everything you think, every little thought you think to yourself, in a way you either accept or reject it. You know, it's either the next point is either taking you towards or away from a desired outcome. All right, whether it's eating dinner like I was 5 minutes ago, or washing up, or whatever, every little thought you have will either take you towards a specific outcome or away from it. So in a way, all thoughts are self-hypnotic in a way, because they're reinforcing beliefs, reinforcing behaviors, reinforcing outcomes. So I always try and stress this to clients. Don't think that self-hypnosis takes place, you know, on a first thing in the morning or early evening, sat on a yoga mat with your legs crossed and some joss sticks burning. It's not all about that, really. It's just, you know, whenever you focus your mind on an idea, that is a form of hypnosis. So it's really, really important to remember that. And of course, the last one there, all thoughts, on especially all self-hypnotic thoughts, putting it in these kind of terms for this session, are driven by beliefs. Right? Whatever we believe will influence the thoughts we have, including the self-hypnotic thoughts. All right, so just now I walked past a pond in my garden, saw there's some tadpoles there. The little thought going through my mind was, aren't they cute? That's not particularly going to have a major effect on my life, but something about achieving something or not achieving will have an effect. So that's what I mean by like a self-hypnotic one. All right. Some thoughts have far more meaning than others. So when there's something you want to achieve, something you want to change, just bear in mind that every single thought you have will be either moving you towards it or away from it. And I saw on a marketing thing the other day, they're saying it was something like, don't allow, any thought in your mind has to be doing something for you, because if it isn't, it's going to be doing something against you. So don't give it the space. If it's not serving you in some way, just don't give it the space in your mind. All right. We'll go through how to do that soon. I think I've laboured that point enough for you. There we go, let's move on. All right, so different types of self-hypnosis. So you can do Your very typical kind of traditional formal self-hypnosis, this is where you might do some kind of self-induction, like a relaxation or some visualization, relaxation, induction there, followed by some kind of deepening thing. And then you do the auto-suggestions. Auto-suggestions is like another name for self-hypnosis. It's things done auto to yourself. So you could do that. You can, any form of counting down, breathing, relaxation to get you into that state of mind. And then you go through the thoughts, the ideas, the beliefs that you want to insert in your mind. And again, I'll fine-tune this as we go through this presentation for you. So you can do that yourself, or you can teach a client to do that if you want to. So quite often with clients, if I want them to do some kind of self-hypnosis, as I'm doing like a relaxation induction at the beginning, I will make it fairly structured and say to them that you can do this yourself. Remember what I'm doing, because you're going to do this yourself. If I'm counting down from this or just going through these muscles or doing a little routine, I'll keep it very simple, very formulaic, so they can repeat that themselves. You can then make a self-hypnosis recording, which is the same as above. You do some kind of induction, a deepening if you want to, and then the suggestions are very popular, and the internet is full of kind of hypnosis CDs, MP3s, on a whole range of things. So you can use those, or you can make your own ones. All right, this is a way of doing it. Then there's just kind of mantras, affirmations, incantations, declarations, anchors. Those are a few phrases that came off the top of my head in a way that describe, when you're thinking something or saying something to yourself because you want to reinforce it or help yourself begin to believe it. I like the word mantra because it means instrument of the mind. Affirmations has lots of positive thinky type associations with it, so I tend to not use that phrase myself, but some people like it. Incantations is an Anthony Robbins, a Tony Robbins phrase. Quite like it. Sounds like magic spells, that kind of thing. Declarations is another version of it, more like when you're trying to say, when you're committing to something, okay? Instead of saying like, I want to do this, or would it be nice, which is like indirect way, then a declaration is like, I'm going to do this. I'm absolutely going to do this. And that's quite a forceful way of doing it. Anchors a bit NLP-ish, like a conditioning thing. Anchors can be all sorts of things, but I put it in there because it's like something you tend to do on the spur of the moment. You don't have to sit down in your full trance state to do that. It's just like, right, you fire off an anchor and off you go. Then the self-hypnotic questions. I like these quite a lot. And again, we'll fine-tune this later for you. So instead of actually giving yourself a suggestion, you just ask yourself a question with the outcome you want in there. So the positive outcome you want is part of the question. So how can I stay calm and relaxed in this situation? How can I be even more so-and-so in whatever? Okay, I spent the last 8 days helping a lady who's going through hysterectomy today. And she emailed me 10 days ago and absolutely panic-stricken, and then booked up an appointment with me. And she came in absolutely tears, in real tears, really, really anxious, extremely panicky. Because all her life she's had a fear of pain. When she was 16, she decided she would never have children because she couldn't even, think of the idea of the pain. And she's just avoided pain all her life. And now she's got to go through this operation, this procedure today. And every single bit of research she did, and it described how much pain, discomfort, out of control, ill she was going to be for weeks and months upon end, So it's a pretty horrific thing in her mind. And she pretty much hypnotized herself to believe, and this may seem strange when I tell you, but the image she built up in her mind was of herself being left in like a Victorian-styled hospital, having to drag herself across the floor, clutching her stomach, trying to get to the toilet in time because she's felt she's going to be nauseous and throw up all the time. So she built this idea up and up and up, not just the pain, but she'd had this horrific scenario in her mind of how it's going to be. And actually she came to see me just over a week ago, and then she booked in for 3 more 2-hour sessions, right? And we went through this again and again and again. I feel like I've had a hysterectomy myself in the past weeks. I've been through it so many times with her. But eventually, once I calm down, and once we've got the details out, and once I've done some visualization, and once we've done a bit of clearing out of trust issues, and once we've done a bit of, what do you want to happen? How do you like it to be? And I've done some of the pain relief techniques. I've done some going inside visualization. We've done some healing visualization. And we've done some body preparation visualization. Eventually, I just said to her, look, the question you're going to ask yourself is, how can I stay calm and relaxed and in control? How can I remind myself that I can heal my body? How can I reassure myself even more that I feel safe and secure and supported? All these kind of things. Right? So I went through a load of clearing out stuff with her, but when I left her on Friday, I had a quick chat on the phone with her today. She's feeling much more calm, much more ready for it. Then it's just a very simple idea. Just stay calm, stay relaxed, stay in control. Trust the people that to do their job. And she's seeing herself surrounded in like a healing white light, because that meant something to her. So I left it as a very simple visualization and some questions there as well. How can I trust even more? How can I allow myself to feel safe and secure? These kind of things. So that's a quick example which came to mind that I've been doing over the past week with the lady. But I went through lots and lots of preparation with her before we got to that point, before she was willing to accept that. Okay, great. So any questions so far? Just basic principles so far, and different types of self-hypnosis. I'm sure we could probably break this down even more, but these are just the general ways of doing it. Right, next point. The basic thing about any kind of suggestion, health self-hypnosis, auto-suggestion, is, it's got to be believable. Is it believable or not? All right. So that woman I'm using as an example there, if I'd have got her to try and say that the first time I met her, so look, you're safe, you're in control, you can relax, everything's okay, she'd look at me as if I was insane, She just wouldn't have accepted that at all, because that wasn't her reality. All right. A week later, she could accept that. But, suggestions must be believable. Okay? However, it's really important to note this one. It's natural for there to be some degree of inner resistance. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to be doing it in the first place. All right. So, at the bottom there, you don't generally use self-hypnosis on something that is already an everyday part of your life. Usually, there's always exceptions to this, but usually it's for something you want to change. Okay. And if there's something you want to change, it means it's not happening right now. And if it's not happening right now, it's because there's a reason for that. So the moment you try and initiate any kind of change in this way, there will be some kind of inner resistance. There's some way you've got to elevate yourself from one belief state to to the next belief state. I don't know if anyone studied physics, but electrons whiz around the center of an atom in different orbits, and they stay in that kind of orbit, generally speaking, until they get more energy. Then they jump up to the next level, right? And they have a different orbit. And it's the same with anything that orbits. It needs energy put into it to elevate it to the next level of orbit. And the same with your belief systems. When you want to change something, unless there's a moment of insight that releases old ideas, when you decide there's something you want to change, that there will be an element of challenge in that. Okay, so in any form of suggestion, usually there's initially some kind of resistance in some way, shape, or form. Everyone clear on that one? So it's okay to feel resistant. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to feel completely open and clear and accepting and at one with everything. But of course, and let's refer back to Mr. Coué. So Coué's law of reversed effort, reversed effect says that whenever there is a conflict between the will and the imagination will win. Went through this with the weight loss thing a couple of weeks ago, if everyone was watching that one. Okay, so the harder you try, the more you will fail. And this applies equally to any form of self-hypnosis, auto-suggestion, as it does anything else. Right? So the more you try and give yourself suggestions or tell yourself something or visualize something, the more that is in conflict with inner ideas, your imagination, then the more it's going to cause a problem for you. Right? And have the opposite effect, or you'll just end up failing in some way. Excuse me, take a drink. So, for effective self-hypnosis, right, same with any hypnosis, self-hypnosis, but all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, then the will and your imagination must be aligned. All right, so your auto-suggestions must be aligned with at least some part of your belief system, and all of it for the effect to be permanent. Okay, does that make sense? So your auto-suggestions must be aligned with at least some part of your belief system. All right, so to begin with, you may have conflicting beliefs. You may say, look, I can do this, but part of you thinks, well, but I can't because I feel scared or worried or upset in some way. But as long as your suggestions are aligned with at least part of your belief system, that's okay, because you can lock onto that. All right. Sarah says, the sound keeps cutting in and out. Is it just me? Is everyone else having sound problems, or is it okay? Let me just check, make sure. Everyone hear me okay? Fine here, Amanda. Okay here. Cool, all right. Okay, so Sarah, it's going to be your end somewhere. Make sure your kids aren't aren't watching something on Netflix right now. That's probably all it is. Okay, or something like that. All right. Great, thanks everybody. That's lovely. Okay, so you get that here. You've got to have at least some support inwardly for these suggestions to take effect. Let me just go back to these diagrams I did last time. All right, so when your will and imagination are in conflict, and in this case your will is like your self-hypnotic suggestions, your desired outcome. Even if you put yourself in hypnosis, and even if you give yourself those suggestions, then if your imagination, your greater identity, your beliefs are against that, then actually it just won't work. It'll be temporary, or just won't work, or you just won't accept it. You won't believe it. Right? But conversely, when your will and your imagination are aligned, so when your imagery, when your suggestions line up with your beliefs and your identity and your imagination, then there's a greater chance of success. Okay, good. Just checking the comments there. Richard says his is coming in and out. Must be the south coast of the UK. All right. Sometimes if I speak and move a picture at the same time, it causes a problem. So I'll try and pause between moving pictures and speaking. I've known that in the past, that happens. Hi, Ness. Okay, great. So what we want ideally is, in any situation, our will and our imagination to be lined up. So we want our auto-suggestions, our self-hypnosis, to be lined up with our beliefs and our identity. So if it isn't, then you get this effect. All right. So this is a bit of a blokey one. So you get someone who learns this. You can hypnotize yourself to achieve anything you want to. All right. So he sits there doing the affirmations, doing the positive thinking, doing the auto-hypnosis. I'm a millionaire, married to a model, and drive a brand new Ferrari, which is a very, very male, not everybody, a very, very male thing to want to visualize and go through. You find a lot of people in the hypnosis world and the positive thinking world and successful, that kind of stuff. Now, if those inner ideas are actually going, actually, mate, you're broke, single, and you're riding an old push bike, obviously there's a big conflict there. All right. So whichever of those ideas is the most believable to that person and reinforced enough times will create the desired outcome. Okay, and I say desired outcome as in the one that's most, the one that's most focused on. So if this person sits daydreaming about being a millionaire, married to a model, driving a new Ferrari, but actually inwardly his beliefs are, actually, mate, you got no money, no girlfriend, and you're riding an old bike, then the one that's most believable to this person, the one with the most repetition, is going to be the negative one. And if that person continues that way through life, then they'll probably end up like this. Okay, so the law of reversed effect takes place. So they try and do a bit of that, but actually their belief system don't really get them anywhere. Years later, self-hypnosis, yeah, I tried that years ago, a load of rubbish. Right? So the will, the self-hypnosis in this case, fails because the imagination, the inner identity, the belief wins. It's more repetition, more time spent on it, more emotion spent on it. It's more believable to the person, so that person's actions will lead them to the result. Right? I'm using extreme examples here to illustrate it. But if we take the same person with a different set of beliefs, okay, this person says same thing, okay, and his mind is saying, I want to be married to be a millionaire, married to a model, drive a brand new Ferrari. Now, if this person has some core beliefs to support that idea, for example, saying, look, what you can conceive and believe you can achieve, and feels good as a person, a lot of self-belief, then there's every possibility that this person can, have a greatly increased likelihood of the desired outcome. And the same person could say, self-hypnosis, yeah, I wouldn't be where I am now without it. Right? I mentioned I'm using the racing driver example because I was watching that the new young guy who seems to be winning all the Grand Prix, I forget his name. He just said from an early age, he said, I just had tons of self-belief, and he seems to be thrashing everybody at the moment. And I saw him interviewed, I was on Top Gear or something like that, and he was just saying, look, I'm filled with self-belief, I've always believed in myself. And when you have self-belief in his mind, I'm sure from the moment he got interested in racing driving, he would have been picturing, visualizing, imagining himself standing on the podium, shaking that bottle of big champagne. He may not have sat in a chair with his eyes closed, visualizing it. Probably did, I don't know that. But in his mind, I know from to achieve that kind of success, he would have been doing that again and again and again, because every single successful person does that in one way, shape or form. All right? But you have to have the supporting beliefs to get there. Okay, we've got clear on that so far, everybody? I'm labouring the point, but it's really important, because if you don't get this and you don't explain it to clients, then you'll struggle, because you try something and you think, well, that didn't work. Right? But you have to realise that there's like the surface level ideas have to be supported by the underneath ideas. Great. I'm going to go through some limiting core beliefs. Right. Now, in a way, all limiting emotional beliefs can be attributed to one of the following ideas, or one or more of them. Some of you may have seen me explain this in a different place. So, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, is a core belief that many, many people have. And this will underpin lots and lots of ideas. So to our little racing driver example, the person dreaming of being a millionaire Formula One winner, for example, if that person has a belief that, yeah, but I don't really deserve to do well, I'm not a good person, there's very little chance they're going to make it, because every time they try and do something, they'll sabotage it. Any kind of self-hypnotic suggestion they do will be sabotaged. The world is not a safe place for me. To use the same example, obviously that racing driving isn't particularly safe, but they'll be too busy focusing on the fear, the scare factor, the danger factor, rather than driving as fast as they possibly can. I'm powerless is a belief many people have. Powerless to change, powerless over my life's circumstances, powerless over what happens to me. If someone has that kind of belief there, it doesn't matter what kind of auto-suggestion they give themselves. If they don't believe they have the ability to change something, then it's like, well, what's the point? I'll do this anyway, but there's no point because I can't change anything. Okay. And then love and relationships are equal to pain is the one that will influence a lot of situations. So someone is looking out for a new relationship, a new partner, improving current situations, that kind of stuff. If they have a core belief that love and relationships equal pain, then they're just going to create more of the same. So that core idea has to be changed in order to allow kind of relationships to evolve. James says, personal question, but is this what you did when you were starting out? Is this what I did? In what way, James? As in, is this what I did when I was starting out? I did loads of self-hypnosis, if that's what you're asking. To get myself going, you mean? As in to launch my business and clients, that kind of stuff. I mean, with your beliefs. With my beliefs. I do it every day, actually. Still, anytime I find myself being a bit negative or down about something or worrying about something, I just challenge it straight away. So I did it when I was first starting out, and I still do it, So if I have a client I'm struggling with, it still happens, I quite often reassure myself in the middle of it. Raj, I'll get onto that in just a moment, mate. I will come to that. So yeah, whatever there's something I want to do, if I feel any internal resistance to it at all, then it means I've got some kind of limiting or doubting belief system. So I'll question it, challenge it, and do what I'm going to show in just a moment to change that. Okay, if I get to do something and I just do it, then there's no worry. That's what I was saying earlier at the beginning. If you can just do it anyway, you don't need self-hypnosis because you're already doing it. It's only when there's something that's difficult or a challenge or new that you need to challenge your thoughts in some way. So yeah, James, I did it at the beginning. I've probably done it continually ever since, sometimes more efficiently than others. Nowadays, I'm more efficient at it than I used to be. Hopefully, I'll be even more efficient next year. Teresa saying, isn't this an ongoing process throughout your whole life? Yeah, for me, definitely, absolutely. I think for most people too, but for me, absolutely. All right. So, next bit, conflicting beliefs. Okay, if your self-hypnosis challenges one of your core beliefs, the result will be temporary or partial. All right, so part of your self-hypnosis must address these core beliefs for the results to be effective and lasting. Okay, that's kind of summarizing what I've been saying so far. If your self-hypnosis challenges one of your core beliefs, the results will be temporary or partial. So let's say in a business sense, we go back a slide. If you say, yeah, okay, I can be successful, I'm a good business person, good therapist, good hypnotherapist, and you give yourself positive suggestions like that, I can be successful, I can see 5 clients a week, I can see 10 clients a week, I can see 40 clients a week, whatever is meaningful to you. But that challenges a core belief saying, yeah, but I'm not worthy, I don't really deserve it. Then you're in trouble, right? Because you've got a conflict going on. All right. So these conflicting beliefs, it's quite vital to spot these, and you'll know where they are because you'll be thinking something positive or doing suggestions to yourself, and there'll be some kind of resistance to it. You just won't feel comfortable. It'll be like a trigger, a twinge in you, or a tension, or a yeah, right, kind of little voice at the back of your mind. All right? So rather than just plugging away at the same old thing, you're far better then to address what that belief is. Okay, so Raj, starting to answer your question a minute right now. Okay, the moment there's any kind of resistance, don't just ignore it. Just question it. What am I thinking? What am I believing? What am I feeling right now? What must I be believing to be having this feeling? I'm thinking all positive and trying to be super positive here and give myself some hypnosis suggestions, but I feel tense, I feel anxious, I feel frustrated, I feel irritated, I feel annoyed. What is it? What must I be believing to be feeling that? And you'll very often find that the next layer of beliefs will start popping into your mind. All right. So then you can think, okay, what do I need to believe instead? So you can start working it down. If you think of that diagram I've shown you somewhere, saying with what you don't want, what you do want, and as is, if you make a list of those kind of things, those are really good for forming good suggestions for yourself, for a client. I refer back to that kind of thing again and again and again. With myself, I just do it mentally nowadays, but occasionally write some things down. With clients, I'll do that mentally in my head, but I'll write the answers down for them in a session. All right. So any kind of challenge, start addressing the challenge rather than just ignoring it and keep doing the same old thing. Makes sense, everybody? This way you're lowering the resistance as you do this. Okay. But we have this thing called the critical faculty, which is a phrase I don't tend to use this very often, this phrase. But the critical faculty is the part of your mind. Actually, let me just correct that a minute. Okay. The critical faculty is the part of your mind that assesses incoming information and decides whether to accept it into the subconscious or your belief system or not. Right? And for suggestions to take root, you must be able to bypass or befriend your critical faculty. So imagine you've got like a bouncer at a nightclub and you want to get in the club, but the bouncer's there to decide whether to let you in or not. This club, this amazing place where all the fun is and all the idea and everything's going on there, but only certain things can be accepted into it. So it's got to pass the security, got to pass the critical faculty. It's a bit like in the library model I use. There's a bouncer on the door, or a security person deciding which books can be put into that library, which files can be put in there. Okay, now. Oops. If you enter a battle or a competition between you versus the critical faculty, whether it's your own or those of a client, okay, now, in a good hypnotic subject, it's easy to, in a way, distract the critical faculty and allow your suggestions to slip inside. All right, so in a stage hypnosis show, the hypnotist there, the stage hypnotist, is looking for people whose critical faculty it's easy to bypass for reasons. My understanding is that the people have the ability to put their mind around an idea, mono-ideaism, more easily than others. I think everybody actually can learn that skill when you practice, when you allow it to happen. But some people just seem to do it more easily. So when you wrap your mind around an idea fully, then in that moment the critical faculty is just switched off more easily than others. And in stage hypnosis, any good stage hypnotist will tell you it's just a numbers game. You take in a big enough number of people and a certain percentage of them will respond in that way. All right? So don't think it's anything to do with your power, your ability. It takes a certain confidence to do that, and it can be quite stressful doing that. But it's just a percentage of people respond easily in that way. That's all it comes down to. So a good hypnotic subject, it's easy to distract the critical faculty and allow your suggestions to slip inside. Literally, you can just do a nice hypnotic induction, visualize, say some things, and that person will just accept that very easily. And that's what everybody wants that's what most people want and expect from hypnosis when they don't know much about it. Okay. Now, in most people, in a good state of hypnosis, the critical faculty can stand aside for a while and kind of weigh up the situation. Right? If it's all okay, and the bouncer of the security system there can accept there's a good cause for letting in the ideas, then it will let the new suggestions inside for a while at least. So that's saying, okay, yeah, you can come in the club tonight. We'll let you in for a night, and we'll see what happens. Okay. So a good state of hypnosis where you're kind of disconnected from the external world more. You're calm, you're peaceful, you're relaxed, you're not really thinking about anything, but your mind can begin to focus on some new ideas, some positive ideas. Then the critical faculty, the bouncer, security is saying, actually, yeah, it's all right, we like this idea. This is quite nice. Yeah. I think we can accept this one. For that moment at least. Okay. But if the new suggestions imply any kind of threat or unacceptability, the critical factor, the bouncer there, will trigger the security alert and not accept them in. It's like the bouncer on the door calls his mates and says, trouble here, we're going to cause a blockade, we're not letting this idea in. Right. So most people, when performing some kind of self-hypnosis, will usually be looking for some kind of positive idea, right? So you think, well, why won't the mind let it in if it's a positive idea? Well, the reason is because some kind of core belief will be believing that it isn't positive. Okay. However good or positive the idea may seem logically, if there's some kind of fear or threat-based emotion there challenging that idea, then it just won't let it in. And it's not causing a problem, it's doing it for your greater good. Remember, all beliefs, all parts of us are trying to serve our greater good. Any part of us that prevents some kind of good thing happening because it doesn't believe we're worthy of it is trying to avoid being punished or something like that, for example. Right. So, and again, all of this is the same for hypnosis and self-hypnosis, because all hypnosis, it really is self-hypnosis. So whether this is for a client you're giving suggestions to, or teaching the client some kind of self-hypnosis, or doing self-hypnosis on yourself, the same is true. This critical faculty, this security system, either befriend it, so it says, yeah, you can come in, or get around it. Okay, getting around it you can do on very suggestible people. On yourself, it's kind of hard to fool yourself. Right? This is why befriending it is a much easier way. So how do you do that? Okay, the easiest and the most effective way to perform self-hypnosis. So Raj, this is finally answering your question. The easiest and most effective way to perform self-hypnosis is to first establish a frame of mind that the critical faculty can accept. Okay, and then give the auto-suggestions. Then give the self-hypnosis. Right? So you're avoiding the conflict situation. I wouldn't like to go up against a guy like that guy in the image, but I wouldn't mind making him my friend, because then someone's on my side like that. All right, so you create a frame of mind where the critical faculty is just over there, standing aside, just watching, basically. Then you give suggestions that fit in with your beliefs that you want, and ideally with core beliefs. We'll go through some practical examples in just a moment. So this is a great paragraph I took from a book called The Nature of Personal Reality by Jane Roberts. Because to me, it summarizes how to do this. I've never ever seen this written anywhere, really, in any kind of hypnosis book. But let me just make sure you get this totally, because this makes all the difference between self-hypnosis that works and self-hypnosis that doesn't work. Or the same with all the stuff, all the law of attraction, the manifesting thing that's so trendy nowadays. All this is really reliant on the idea in this paragraph. Okay. So the suggestion in this book says, for a certain amount of time, I will momentarily suspend what I believe in this area, whatever this area is, okay, and willfully accept the belief that I want. I'll pretend that I'm under hypnosis, should be in hypnosis really, but we'll allow that, okay. I'm under hypnosis with myself as both hypnotist and subject, and for that time, desire and belief will be one. Okay, there'll be no conflict because I do this willingly. And for this period, I will completely alter my old beliefs. So even though I sit quietly in my mind, I will act as if the belief I want were mine completely. Okay, so hopefully you can see the subtlety, but the enormous subtlety there. But it's a profound effect, because what it's saying is, no longer are you going up against your critical faculty. What you're doing is saying, look, for a moment, I'm going to just pretend that everything I think is real, everything that seems real up until now, I'm going to just put it aside for a moment and just suspend what I believe just for a moment, just for these few moments. Just push it aside for a moment. And for these few moments, these few seconds, these few minutes, I'm going to willfully accept the belief that I want. Okay, as if it's mine completely right now. And there's no conflict, between what I'm saying I am and what I think I am, because I'm saying, look, for now, I'm going to pretend that all those other thoughts I have just don't exist for a moment, just for now. All right. So in a way, it's like there cannot be a critical faculty there for a moment, because you're saying there's nothing to be critical of. Just putting it all aside for a moment, and you clear a space in your mind there for that. And then for those few moments, and those few moments need to be from a minimum of kind of 15 to 20 seconds or so, but preferably a few minutes if you can. You totally, absolutely focus on the idea you want. If it's in a recording, that's okay, fine. It's normally repeated. If you're doing it yourself, I like the idea of pretending you're being hypnotized by someone. That works well for me. You just sit and relax, let your head flop forward and go really floppy, and you can get into it more that way. But sometimes I do this if I go for a run, go for a walk with my dogs, go for a run with my dogs. I'll just be saying things to myself, but I usually clear my mind first of all. If there's any tension when I try and say something, I'll clear the tension first of all. I always keep going back to the layers of thoughts until I feel calm and peaceful when I'm saying it. Okay? Does this make sense what I'm saying? It's so important just to get this idea, because if you do this and get this, then the ideas begin to go in. All right. Good, excellent. Okay, great. And actually, just move on to the next slide, because I probably don't want to double myself up. Okay. So the important factor is that either you or the client you are teaching has to consciously, deliberately, willingly suspend your or their normal reality for a moment, and willfully accept some new ideas as if they are already true now, not some point in the future, now, right now. Okay? And this is another important point, because usually when there's something you want to get or achieve in some way, when you don't have it, there's an element of excitement about it, or wanting it, or yearning, or desperation, or neediness, or something like that. But when you have it, and it's an everyday part of your life, it just feels normal. If each of you think of some area of your life that just feels so normal, you just do without even thinking, whether it's getting up and driving a car, or walking, or anything that you think, you do it without thinking. Right? It just feels normal. It might feel nice when you do it. It might feel nice being able to go for a walk. It might feel nice driving in a nice car, whatever it is, or just enjoying something lovely or good. But somebody who can't do that will be yearning for it, desperate for it, craving it. Yet to you, it just feels, well, it's just what I do, So my experience has always been that if there's something you want, the more you can make that a normal feeling when you're doing self-hypnosis, when you're doing visualization for it, then the more your mind begins to feel and accept it as it would everything else that's normal. Whatever that may be. Does that make sense too? So rather than visualizing or self-hypnosising about something that seems too good to be true or too amazing, it's got to feel almost as if like, well, yeah, of course I can do that. Of course I have that. Of course I'm like that. It's just the way it is, isn't it? It's that kind of feeling. So it feels so normal to you. So that when that idea starts to embed in your mind or in your client's mind, that it's normal to think, feel, and behave like that, then it starts to be normal to think and feel and behave like that. So Sarah's just saying this, okay, this premise has dawned on me massively over the past few weeks, and it's uncanny that you're mentioning it now. Cool, well done, Sarah, that's great. Yeah, it took me so long to get this. I don't know how many years I spent not getting it. But when I got it, it was just, yeah, it wasn't just a penny dropping, it was a £50 note kind of drop, you know. When the idea sinks in, it's like, oh my gosh, of course, that's why. All right? But sometimes you've got to go through it again and again and again before it sinks in at the feeling level. Yeah, pounds. Yeah, actually, it made a huge difference to my pounds, yeah. So June sings, Andrew, so not to have an excited feeling about it. Yeah, now this may seem controversial because you'll see a lot of people say, be excited about it. And yeah, the excitement is good if you're winding yourself up for something, you know, to be motivated, to be determined, you know, to be committed to something. Yeah, you need positive, forceful energy. But I'd like to refer things back to kind of martial arts type things. All right. If you think of a martial artist in a battle situation, you wouldn't see a martial artist kind of leaping up and down, arms in the air, saying, yeah, come on, let's go for it, come on, let's have it, okay, that kind of thing. They would be solidly focused, so focused on the goal, probably pumping with adrenaline, but absolutely focused on watching the opposition, so that every move they made was extremely precise and powerful and filled with driving energy. So my experience has been, the more you can give yourself that solid, yes, I have it feeling, and it feels good to have it. To me, that has always worked far better for me than, oh, how exciting to do whatever it may be. Because how exciting always seems like something in the future. Okay? Christmas Day was always far more exciting than thinking about it than when it actually came. When it comes, it's just like, okay, well, that's all right, but it's over and done with now. So things in the future, if it seems exciting, to me, it never quite get that core gut feeling of it that will give you the determination, that the step-by-step thing to make it happen. Right? Because usually when there's something you want to achieve or something may happen, there's usually steps you've got to take, as actions you've got to take as well. And the more you can transfer your emotional energy into physical action energy in some way, the more likely you are to achieve that desired outcome. Does that make sense? So yeah, the desired outcome has to be kind of exciting enough that you want to do something about it to get there. All right, it's got to be meaningful that way. But once you do the visualization, the self-hypnosis, in my mind, then it becomes, right, bring it down to reality, make it real, as if this is actually real right now. Yeah. What would it be like if it's say a financial thing? It can be exciting to think of earning loads of money, but when you're someone who has a lot of money, it's no longer that exciting. It's more, we've just got lots of money, and then it gives you that sense of power and control and freedom that comes with that for some people. Okay, so then it just becomes a normal feeling, and the same is true for whatever application. So part of this, to just make sure we build a good foundation for yourselves here, part of this process involves accepting new core beliefs. All right, so the new core beliefs are what we see now, James. So a bit like all of us on this course, we're not whooping for joy every minute. Why not, James? I'm offended now. No, I'm only joking. Sorry. So a bit like all of us on this course, we're not whooping for joy every minute, but instead slowly getting knowledge to change our lives. Yes, absolutely. It's a step-by-step process. Right? When you first, sign up for something, it seems exciting. When the reality comes down to it, it's like, oh God, I've got to do this. I've got to learn that, and it takes a while for it all to really to settle in. But it's that step-by-step building of stepping stones that will create that solidity of belief system within yourself. So yeah, good point, James. So part of this new process involves accepting new core beliefs. Right? So the core beliefs, the challenge, the ones I said earlier, the negative ones, this is the opposite of them. Okay, so the core beliefs that it's good to work on totally, absolutely, of anybody and everybody is to believe that, yeah, I am a good enough, or I am a worthy person. The world is a safe place for me. I am powerful, not powerful over others, but powerful within myself, and can influence my world. And love and relationships equal pleasure. Now, the more you can build on those ideas, the more they will underpin any other area of life you want to. So if it's an achievement thing you want to do, you need to feel good and worthy of it. Otherwise, you'll sabotage it. If it's a fear or a phobia you want to overcome in some way, then it's useful to believe that the world is a safe place for you. If you can begin to get that idea there underneath it, then any fear stacked on top of the old idea will begin to fall away. If you try and make changes but you don't believe you can, or you feel powerless to change anything, then you're going to struggle. Once you believe that you can, that the choices you make, and you do have power, and you do have influence, and you can change your outcome in life, and you can change your destiny, but you can change what happens to you, then everything else begins to fall into place. The energy you put into it begins to come back in some way, because that belief is supporting it. And that love and relationships equal pleasure, then you just begin to have more love, more positive relationships in your life, and in every sense of the word. And more relationships become pleasurable. Does that make sense there? So those are the four opposites of the negative ones. Most of us will carry to some degree or other the negative ones in some degree or other. Okay, but as we go through life, we'll be easing these and changing them and evolving them. When you're working with a client, by the way, they won't always put them in these terms, but when you show them to them, quite often they'll say, "Oh, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that one. Oh, and that one as well. Oh, God, yeah, I'm all for all those." Some people will say that. Some people will say, "No, I'm fine with that one, but those two definitely." Right? So sometimes, if I'm teaching someone some kind of self-hypnosis thing, or giving them some kind of homework, I'll make sure I include some version of these kind of beliefs there within the phrases to underpin the idea they're working on. Okay. So when you get effective preparation and positive core beliefs, then you've got a much greater, that's not right, is it? A much greater increased likelihood of a successful outcome. Okay. And then you can include your specific goals, desired outcome, beliefs, ideas, in whatever format you prefer. Does this make sense? Okay. So you prepare well by getting your mind in that state where the critical faculty is not in a position to challenge it, because you've pushed reality aside for a while. I said, yeah, I know all that, but for now I'm going to just pretend that isn't true, just for these few moments. Okay, so just relax. Get your mind in that state there. You go through the core beliefs there. Look, I'm a good person. I'm a worthy person. I'm safe. I can do this. I can change things in my life. And it's okay to have love and pleasure and positive people in my life. So when that becomes the core bit, then when you start adding things on top of it, then it's like the foundations are laid in a really solid foundations for that. Okay, so I've doubled that up there. So then, let's just repeat slide, sorry. Okay, then, include your specific goals in whichever format you prefer. So the format could be, back to where we started at the beginning, some kind of visualization, where you picture, imagine, see yourself doing the desired outcome, which could be live, as in you just sit there quietly yourself, picture, imagine, focus on it. Or it could be a recording. Could be, some kind of mantra where you say things to yourself, an affirmation, incantations, declarations, anchors, people, clicking the fingers, tapping the shoulders, all that's a form of self-hypnosis, really. I can do this, I can have this, or I can be this, I am this, whatever it is. And self-hypnotic questions, okay? How can I increase my ability to whatever, even more? Okay? Even more is good because it has like a presupposition built into it that there's already something there, but even more means, well, I've already got some, but how can I make it even better? Okay. Now, my understanding is if you get the preparation right and you get your core beliefs right, the doing of the self-hypnosis bit, however you want to do it, it doesn't really matter that much. That's why I've put 95% of this presentation into the preparation and the last 2 slides on actually the doing of it, 2 or 3, because that's what makes the difference. I was doing a bit of research earlier, looking up a phrase to make sure I got the right definition of it. And again, I saw someone saying, when you put someone in hypnosis, the critical faculty switches off and you can give suggestions. And yeah, that's okay. That guarantees for those people who respond well in a stage type scenario, which is 10, 15, 20% of people if you're lucky. But everybody else, the critical faculty is just going to be there. Right? So you can't always just bypass it. You have to befriend it. And when you learn to befriend it in this way, far more effective. So however you choose to use visualization or mantras or questions there, a few factors that will determine how effective they are. A few extra bits at the end here. So repetition, okay, really important. My own experience has been, okay, if it's a little idea, a simple idea, then it doesn't take much there. But if it's quite a big shift, you may have to, a ton of repetition, 30 to 40 days of the same thing again and again and again drilled into your mind. You can't expect to say something one day and the next day say, well, where is it? It's not going to happen. Or rarely, unless you've been preparing for it and your beliefs have already been changing, and it's just like the last little bit, just like that. Usually, there's got to be some kind of repetition in some way. And quite often it takes effort to do this, because you're changing how you think. And so repetition is really important, and being focused is really important. One idea, monoideism, monoidism, the key underpinning of hypnosis, really. James Braid, after he tried to change it from hypnosis to this phrase, monoidism, but hypnosis is already stuck. So wrapping your mind around one idea exclusively, and holding your mind around that idea. When your mind wraps around an idea to exclusion of all else, it will do everything it can to make that come into reality for you. Okay, so being focused on one idea is really, really important. So it's far better to do a short burst of concentration on one core idea, one particular idea, or a small selection of ideas, than a long waffly thing, really, where your mind's drifting off. Okay. The same book where I took that phrase from, the suspending your beliefs for a while, suggests that no more than 4 or 5 minutes. And actually, if you're doing this yourself, 4 or 5 minutes seems like a lifetime. It's really, really hard to concentrate for that long. Okay. So when I say duration, I'm saying aiming for at least 15 to 20 seconds for an idea to become meaningful. By meaningful, I mean for your mind to start realizing you're actually concentrating on it rather than just a fleeting thought. Right, and a good minute or so for it to start to take effect. You might think, well, that doesn't sound much, 20 seconds, a minute. But actually, if you sit now and try and focus on an idea for that long, most of you, myself included, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds, and that's it. We're drifting off to something, and that's what our minds are kind of like, really. So when you can hold your attention on something for 15 to 20 seconds, you're doing that kind of 3 to 4 times longer than normal. So something weird happens. Your mind starts going, oh, okay, we've got to pay attention to this. It just becomes a bit more meaningful, rather than just the everyday thoughts that go through your mind. And when you can hold that for at least a minute or so, then it begins to embed and make an impression. If you can do that for a couple of minutes or so, then it's really, really begins to embed. And that's why quite often, you may have heard me say this, I usually quite often suggest saying things out loud, repeating ideas out loud. Because when you repeat something out loud to yourself, it's so much easier to stay focused on it. If you just sit quietly in your mind imagining, it's so easy to drift off and get distracted. So easy to do that. But when you're repeating a phrase, when you're saying it out loud, it takes more concentration to do that. And plus, I think the hearing of the words makes a huge difference too. I can do it. I can achieve this. I can stay calm. I can stay relaxed. I can be okay. Again and again and again. Okay. And making it emotive. Okay, so the greater the sense of satisfaction, the more energy there is behind it. So I was trying to think of a good word to summarize that feeling normal with it feeling. I think that the best feeling I get was a sense of satisfaction, just feeling good about something. You want something to be exciting enough to want to do something about it to get there. But when you get it, it just needs to feel satisfying, something you can feel grateful for, pleased with, good about. Vanessa's saying, would you say I can or I am? It depends what it is, really. Depends on what you want to do, I can do this or I am this. But you've got to be able to accept that you can or am at some level of your being. If you can accept it intellectually, first of all, even if you can only accept it intellectually, that's a good starting point. I should point out sometimes with clients, Ness, if you want to clarify the question for me, I'll answer it a bit better in a minute. But sometimes this is too far too quickly for some people. So instead of going straight for as is things, that's when I use the look, well, I want this instead. I want to feel this. I want to be able to do this. And use that as a form of stepping stones, self-hypnosis on the way to it. Okay, let's use Vanessa's example. I'm thinking if I want to relax. Okay, yeah, so you can say, yeah, I can relax. Okay, right, yeah, so I get what you're saying. So if you say to yourself, I am relaxed, and then you're not in that moment, there may be a conflict, okay? So in that moment, it might be easy to say to yourself, look, I can relax right now, because that way your critical faculty can step aside. Look, I can relax. Right here, right now, everything's okay. I can relax. This moment, I can relax. Everything's okay. I'm safe. I can relax. Does that make sense? If that's too much to get to, bye, Sarah. If that's too much, then you can say, look, I want to relax right now. I want to be able to relax. I want to feel I can relax. Does that make sense, Ness? Okay. So you do whichever one doesn't annoy the critical faculty. helps the bouncer step aside. Good, okay. And the final thought there really is just, look, this quote from Napoleon Hill. Many of you would have seen me put this somewhere. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. If you can conceive of it, as in you can picture, imagine, get the idea in your mind, grasp it in some way, think it's possible in some way. So imagine you can do it in some way, and believe it's possible, then it's achievable. Right? And then there has to be some kind of action as well. All right. I haven't got the slide here for this, but usually these things have to be backed up by some kind of action. Right. If there's something you want to do, something you want to achieve, and you can use self-hypnosis on yourself and some kind of positive thinking on yourself, or visualization, or words, or however you want to do it, and you can believe it's possible, then you need to do something, some kind of step in that direction to say, yeah, I'm committing to it, I believe in it in some way. Okay, because if you go through all the self-hypnosis and the positive thinking and the mantras and all that kind of stuff, but then the next time there's an opportunity to do something, in that moment, even if it's just a tiny, tiny step, if you do the old way, it means you're reinforcing the old belief. Right? If you take a tiny gesture, a tiny step in the direction of the new idea, it's reinforcing that to your mind, saying, okay, yeah, we are stepping in a new direction right now. So your actions then need to back up your auto-suggestions. Now, if the suggestions are sticking and taking root, then your actions will automatically begin to follow that anyway, and it'll form a nice little loop. But I've noticed over the years and years that usually when you make some kind of change, pretty soon afterwards, some kind of opportunity will arise for you to choose whether you want to go the old way or the new way. And, that opportunity will keep arising, but usually fairly soon after, when there's been some kind of inner shift in some way, there'll be an opportunity to make a choice again. And in that moment, when you choose the new way, then that's when you fully begin to let go of the old way. It just begins to go. It's like everything's there, and your mind says, yeah, you're going to go for it, you're going to take it, you're ready for it, and you say yes, you take that action differently. And then the mind says, okay, great, thanks, we got it. We know you mean it now. Martin says, yeah, I found that often a suggestion in one direction can shift other areas. Yeah, absolutely. Totally, yeah. And usually quite unexpected ones too sometimes. Okay, that's my last slide on this. That may be different than what you thought I might be saying about self-hypnosis, but to me it's all about the preparation and bypassing the critical faculty and getting your core beliefs lined up. And then it all works so much more effectively. Oops, let me just read that statement. Use that. That's a long one. Let's have a look. Sorry, hang on. Let me just read James's comment if I can get it on my screen. James is saying, okay, there is a poem I have on my fridge from a Catherine Cookson book that I read every day. I'm including it here in case anyone wants to screenshot it. It goes, actually, what I'll do, I'll put it on screen for everyone. Okay, hang on a sec. Can I do that? I can, there we go. Oh, bother. Let's do it this way. Bear with me, guys. Hang on. You can see it. Okay, I'll make it. Can I do that? Edit. Copy. Put it on the screen so it's easy to read. Oh, wrong one. Okay. Sorry, it's worth a try. What I'll do, I'll send it to you later. Okay, right. You guys can see it anyway. All right. It's quite nice. I'll when I do, James and me, if you can email it to me, mate, I'll tag it on the end of this presentation because it seems quite nice. Okay. That slide shouldn't be there. Any questions? We've been going an hour and 12 minutes now, so that's probably about concentration wearing out time. So any questions? What would be great is if you've got any specifics on this, maybe you think of some self-hypnosis examples, put some together yourself and mention them in the, put them in the Facebook group so people can chat about it and, share your ideas. It's okay to share, what you're going through. I'll try and tell you as much of my personal stuff as possible that's relevant, so you know that just because I teach these things, it doesn't mean everything works perfectly for me all the time. I still have to go through stuff and sort things out and challenge things and deal with stuff. the more you can reveal of yourself, the more helpful it is to everybody else. Because if there's something you're going through, then I can guarantee somebody else is as well. It's nice to have the difficulties as well as the successes there. So okay, guys, everyone's got to go now, which is great. So share some ideas in the Facebook groups, and I'll look forward to commenting on them.